So this is the thing. So I have cousins who work for GM now. They all worked at Lordstown. My aunt, who had worked there for years and years and years, I think they gave her an option to buy out, and I think she took it. My cousins all worked there. I mean, they got out of school. They did some higher education. Some went to the military, and then they went to work at Lordstown. So now one I think is in Missouri, another one is in Flint, Michigan. They're like all over the place, but they did exactly what you said, Peter, which is take GM's offer and go to other states to work. So there is that. The crazy part about it is a lot of those people before Lordstown closed were definitely on the Trump train. And then they would say, like, man, these guys are fanatics for Trump. They work right beside me and they're fanatics for Trump. They're in the same boat. They rise and fall together, but they two totally different, almost paradoxical viewpoints on politics. And I still can't wrap my brain around how that works. But at least on in 2016, it made sense to me because Hillary Clinton didn't have an answer for a question they had been asking for a long time, especially about trade. And I mean, you're from Toledo, and Peter, you were in Toledo and lived in Youngstown, so you know that the steel tariffs were a big thing even under W. Bush. Mm-hmm. And so they hated, the free trade agreement. Trump said he hated it too, and he was going to bring jobs back. And if you're desperate, you've seen people be laid off. My dad was a steel mill worker, and he worked at the same plant for almost his entire adult life, but at the same time worked at 7 different steel mill plants. Mm-hmm. That just changed names every few years. So everybody understood, what the time was. And so, yeah, it just seems to me that the desperation won out. What I couldn't figure out was how he was still able to win those guys again in round 2, having delivered on none of those promises. And you wake up finding yourself in a new state. Why are you cool with that? I still don't understand it.
I think it's the erosion of the union idea, the erosion of thinking about the collective bargaining idea. I mean, we had state. What was it? It was SB5 a few years ago, where they wanted to get rid of correct collective bargaining in the state. And the only reason it failed is because they realized that the police actually
the police and fire department.
No, we don't upset those people, do we?
Yeah, and then they tried to separate them out and say, well, we'll get the rest of these guys.
And people saw through it. People saw through it, right? But it's this breaking down of. I think NAFTA was a big mistake. Yes, I think NAFTA was done poorly. I think NAFTA really screwed over the wrong people, and those people who came to think about Trump as an alternative listened to his lies. I mean, I was down at the Covelli Center, which is our big convention center downtown, and Trump was speaking the one day, and we had a rally with the Democrats outside, and his whole thing was about, don't sell your house in Youngstown because the steel mills are coming back. We're going to rebuild everything. No, it was the same thing as his healthcare issue, his healthcare bill. It isn't real. But I think you're absolutely right, Jahi, in the sense that what else do they have to grab a hold of? And his thing in 2016 that I think really sunk home was, what the hell do you have to lose?
Right.
What the hell do you have to lose?
Yep, they said it just like that. Yep.
And people latch into that. If you've got nothing, there isn't much. You're desperate, and you're just going to believe that stuff. But the second point to your question about why did they go back to him in 2016,
right,
or 2020 now? Why are they back to him now? Is a question that I think we'll spend the rest of our lives trying to answer. Unless
they kind of touched on it because I've been watching CNN, NBC, or MSNBC. I've been even watching Fox.
I watch Fox too, yeah.
Yeah, Fox is even now at the point where they're like, okay, y'all, come on. But I have been watching, and that topic was actually discussed. And Jahi gonna get on me for saying this, but they're kind of blaming the progressive left for why these people went back to Trump in 2020. Because, and I've said it before, that word free that the progressive left used and the socialists and all of that, that turned people off. And even though how we screamed it from the rooftops that that's not who Joe Biden is. It wasn't even really who Kamala Harris is. She tried it and she dipped her foot in it and it didn't work for her. That's why her presidential bid ended, is because she didn't know how to muddy those waters. Mm-hmm. But by far, neither one of them are as progressive as they try to make a name, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, or mm-hmm. even a Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren. Mm-hmm. But it was something that the noise of the progressive left scared people into thinking that, hey, if we go back over here, we're going to have to pay more taxes because they're going to expect free health care, free school, free this, free that. That word free.
Yeah, I
kind of screwed us.
We're exactly on the same page because coming from Britain, this is the first hour we had before. Coming from Britain, we had state-sponsored education. I only went to school because I got a grant, right? Because I got a taxpayer grant because my parents didn't make enough money to sponsor me. And the National Health Service is sponsored by taxpayers, right? It isn't free at all. Everybody pays for it in some way or another. And that word free drives me mad when people start talking politics over here. And yeah, it's a messaging thing again, isn't it? And the right wing in this country, it's so easy for them, right? It's so easy for them to just pick up on things, right? The fact that Bernie Sanders says democratic socialist. I'm technically a democratic socialist. I'm from the Labour Party in Britain, which are democratic socialists, right? But it's that socialist word that Americans freak out on. And that label is so easy to say. He's a socialist. And for Sanders, right, and Jamie in the first hour will probably hate me for saying this, but he describes himself as a democratic socialist. You just turned off half of America because they don't know what socialism is in the modern sense. They don't know what...
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
They don't know what it means in the modern sense. They think, for the Cubans in Florida, they think Bay of Pigs, they think Castro, they think, our relationship with that, they think North Korea and things like that. No, most of modern Europe and parts of Africa are democratic socialist countries that are run for the benefit of their citizens. And people are taxed in a progressive sense so that those who make more will pay more taxes, and it benefits everybody. And so you have lower levels of poverty, and you have higher levels of education, and you have higher levels of opportunity. And getting back to over here, why doesn't that work over here? Money and vested interests and deep-seated hatred of different types of people.
Yeah, I think it's gotten to a point, I want to say over the last 20 years and prior to Trump, but I think Trump just threw everything in overdrive, but we've gotten into these silos, and I think it's even been more exacerbated by how the internet works, whereas now we deliver you the content that you want to hear, not the content that's necessarily true.
It's an echo chamber.
Yeah. And so you assume everybody believes what you believe and agrees with you, because the only people that Facebook will show you are the people that you put a smiley face by or a thumbs up to.
Yeah.
And which is why, why I started the Farce the Nation Facebook group, is so people could have the opportunity to see other people's opinions. Yeah.